than 200,000 people have fled their homes in the west of Cameroon since late last year. The region has been gripped by protests from a separatist English-speaking community in the predominantly French-speaking country. The conflict is fast developing into a humanitarian crisis, as agencies say they're finding it difficult to access the area. Soldiers have allegedly burned villages and killed civilians in a bid to suppress the movement. A clip widely circulating on social media shows two women with an infant being tortured by uniformed men. The authorities have called the video fake news. Let's get more on this. We're joined by Farida Naburema, who is a freedom fighter and a human rights defender. She joins me now live from Johannesburg. Many thanks for speaking to us on TRT World, Farida. For people who don't closely follow this region of Africa, can you firstly tell us what is going on in Cameroon? Why are people fleeing, so many people fleeing their homes?
There is an actual civil war happening in Cameroon. It all started in 2016 when the people living in the English-speaking part of the country started protesting, demanding a better inclusion because they felt discriminated against. The government responded with a lot of violence by brutalizing them, as it happens always in dictatorial countries, and it turned to a violent struggle. So the people in the English-speaking part of Cameroon formed an army, and they have been fighting the government since and are demanding to secede from Cameroon and have their nation recognized as Ambazonia. The violent struggle has turned to a civil war, and over 200,000 people have fled their homes. Many villages have been burned down by the government, and there are killings happening on both sides of the struggle.
And there's concern now that it's turning into a real humanitarian crisis. What exactly is happening? Because agencies say they're really struggling to get any access to the people there.
It is actually a deliberate move by the government of Cameroon to silence the protests going on, because Paul Biya himself, who has ruled the country for 35 years and is now 85 years old, making him one of the oldest dictators in Africa, doesn't want to give the impression that he's losing control of his country, because it's also contested in the Francophone part of the country, where people are living in extreme poverty and are demanding that he leaves power. As a result, they are trying to keep the impression that they're still in control. They have blocked internet in the Anglophone region of the country for so many times to stop people from sharing information on what is happening. They are also making it very difficult for any international organization and humanitarian groups to reach the area. And at this stage, when you have over 200,000 people who have fled their homes and over 50,000 school-age children that are living in the bush and IDP camps and refugee camps in Nigeria, you cannot say that we are nearing a humanitarian crisis. It already is a severe humanitarian crisis that needs to be tackled urgently.
As you say, the President Paul Biya is very much in power, and the elections again coming up in October, where he is likely to run again. I mean, how do you see things changing or improving at all in Cameroon?
The only way I believe that things can get better in Cameroon is to see the end of dictatorship. When people live in a country for decades and they don't have the right to express themselves, they don't have the right to petition their government, they cannot complain about their life conditions, it always becomes very ugly. And that is what we are witnessing in Anglophone Cameroon. We have to be able to allow people have certain civil basic rights, such as freedom of association, freedom of expression, and the right to petition their governments, and also the right to be able to hold their governments accountable. This is something that people cannot afford to have in Cameroon because they live under a dictatorial regime, and the only method that the regime believes they can use is violence, deploying excessive force on civilians. And the world, unfortunately, is not doing enough to pressure the government of Cameroon to stop using such methods, which are only exacerbating people and are only aggravating the situation. So there is only one way out, is to basically push Paul Biya out of power, because after 35 years, he really has nothing left to offer Cameroon.
This is a common problem in Africa, isn't it? A wider issue, if you like. I know Cameroon has its own sort of individual issues, but you see this often in Africa, where leaders stick to power and then try and maintain their power in this way.
That is absolutely true. This is happening in many countries. Central Africa is the worst. Basically, when you look at almost all the neighbors of Cameroon, except Nigeria. These are regimes that have been there for decades. You have Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, that has been there for over 50 years. You have people, the leaders of those countries, who feel that they are self-entitled and who believe, seriously and genuinely believe, that the country is theirs and they have to rule it as they wish. As a result, they don't feel like sharing power at no point whatsoever, and they believe people must at all costs be their subjects. So basically, we don't even have republics, institutions like that. We have monarchies, self-entitled monarchs who believe that they have the right to rule till the end of their lives, and only them can do better for their country. Well, it happened in Zimbabwe. The army took over through a coup. We don't know what's going to be the case in Cameroon, but unfortunately, when leaders cling on power for so long, it always leads to a crisis later on. Sometimes the crisis even starts before they go. They fall as a result of the crisis. This happened in the DRC with Mobutu. It happens in Cote d'Ivoire with Boigny, and many other countries like Central African Republic. When dictators stay too long and they are allowed to abuse citizens for many decades, at some point people have enough and they resort to violence means. And unfortunately, these violence means do not ensure peaceful transition to power. They do not ensure democracy, but unfortunately they perpetuate the cycle of oppression and the cycle of dictatorship and violence.
It is a cycle, and it's always the people who pay the price. Farida, really interesting to talk to you. Farida Naburema, a freedom fighter and a human rights defender.